Hi fans of online entertainment. It's time again to do something that I haven't done in a long time, which is to do another unboxing video. And this is from a band who I've never talked about before, and last Christmas in 2020 I was planning to get that box set, but apparently my order was cancelled online, so I waited until recently to order it, and yesterday it finally came in the post. And today we are looking at the box set of Kansas, the Classic Albums Collection 1974 to 1983. Now, this is a box set that came out in 2011, so 10 years ago, and this includes all of their albums before their initial temporary breakup in 1984. So, how many albums did they release now? So, we have over half of their albums in this box set, so which is pretty cool. And on the back here, we have all of the albums mentioned, but we don't have any track listing. And this box is actually in the same shape as the Electric Light Orchestra box set, because it's called the Classic Albums Collection. It's kind of the same as the Blue Oyster Cult box set in my CD collection too. I got this box set online for €47, so what a bargain. Just like the way that there's 10 albums in this box, and it's 10 for 47, so that's a pretty good bargain. So let's get this opened up. Now, I've always respected Kansas as one of the greatest bands ever, and I think they are multi-talented because of progressive rock. Because progressive rock is really talented. It's a really talented genre of music. We can just lift it off there. And as you can see, that the box is very much a purple colour, kind of similar to the Pink Floyd Discovery box set. So that's pretty cool. So when we open it up here is the booklet and then the albums. I'll get the albums out in just a moment, but first let's have a look at the booklet. So here it is. So first off, we get a cool picture of the band there. All of the albums with the actual track listing. There's that same picture again. Here they are, a really talented band. The band is Kerry Livgren on guitar, Phil Ehart on the drums. That is Rich Williams on the guitar. That is Dave Hope on the bass. Steve Walsh on the vocals and the organ. He's one of my favourite singers of all time. And then Robbie Steinhardt on violin and vocals. That was a great lineup, I think. It's kind of similar to the Bruce Springsteen lineup with Roy, Clarence, Danny, Steve, Gary and Max. Great lineup. And then here they are again. Suit young men. Now, as you guys can tell, Kansas are American because they're called Kansas, and that's a state in America. And then here they are again. Anything I noticed? No. There you go. Really good booklet. Now for the albums. The very first album that I ever heard by Kansas was their fourth album, so I'll get to that one in just a moment. But for now, let's talk about their first album. So it was just titled Kansas from 1974. Here's the back. So what do they do on here? On this album, they do a cover of J.J. Cale's Bringing It Back, which is on his 1972 album, Naturally. And in that same year, 1974, J.J. Cale released the album Okie, which is probably my favourite J.J. Cale album. So yeah, it's pretty good. Robbie Steinhardt sings that one. And we also have other ones in here too. What else do we have? We have Can I Tell You, which is a really good opening track. And Lonely Wind, which is like almost saying Divine Wind by Blue Oyster Cult from their 1980 album Cultosaurus Erectus. That's pretty cool. And let's see, it comes with a write-up on the... Comes with a little bit of a write-up here on the back, if you guys can see it. No. I really like the album cover. It feels like something that's covered in history class, which is pretty cool. So let's just get the disc. It's on Epic Records. So that's pretty cool. So this is a pretty good album. I'll just check my booklet here on what the story is on that. Like, let's see, anything else on here? they have one bonus track on here, and that is a live version of Bringing It Back, which Robbie Steinhardt does the vocals on. This version of Bringing It Back is more boogie, and you can hear the vocals more clearly by Robbie, whereas on JJ's version you can't. This is why I think JJ's records need to be remastered. So, yeah. Not much else to say on this album, but except that it's a pretty good starting album. So we'll just leave that there to the side. Okay, so now we get their second album, released in 1975. Song for America. And this came out in February. Here's the back. Love the cool album cover with the spikes on the front. And I love the band on the back. So what we got in here. So this features the track Down the Road, which is sung by Robbie Steinhardt. And Down the Road is also a song titled by Dan Fogelberg on his 1985 album High Country Snows. And which is pretty cool. I think Robbie Steinhardt here sings all the tracks on side 1, which are Down the Road, Song for America, and Lamplight Symphony. With Lamplight Symphony, you could say Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve on the 1997 album Urban Hymns, which is quite cool. Anything else? We have Lonely Street, which is quite good. Like nearly saying One Way Street by both Bruce Springsteen for The Promise and then on Aerosmith's debut album. And yeah, and there's only 6 songs in this album because, as you can tell, this is mainly progressive rock. Because the last track on here, which is called Imcomrudro, Hymn to the Atman, is like 12 minutes long, and it's written by Kerry Livgren. Kerry Livgren was the main songwriter in the band, even though he didn't sing many of the songs. I wish he did, though, because when you write the songs, you better sing them. Okay, so let's get the disc. It's the same as their first album. That's pretty cool. So, anything else on here? No, that's really it. So, another pretty good album. Really good prog rock music. So, really, really good there. And then, also from 1975, Mask, which came out in September. Back over there. And the opening track on here, It Takes a Woman's Love to Make a Man, was remixed as a single, but it failed to get attention. And when he said, it takes a woman's love, it's nearly like saying, it takes a lot to laugh, it takes a train to cry, by Bob Dylan from 1965's Highway 61 Revisited. And let's have a look at the booklet and see any further information. And on that track, the first track, there's someone called Lone Price plays the saxophone, which is pretty cool. And this album was dedicated to the memory of Randy Loshman and B.T. Kelly, who passed away during that time. And we have It's You, which is also a song titled by Rory Gallagher from his 1971 debut album that turns 50 this year, as well as Deuce by Rory Gallagher. And also in this same year, 1975, Rory released the Against the Grain album a month after this album's release. So that's pretty cool. And we also have The Pinnacle, which is the last track on here, and it's actually part of the which is kind of like part 1 of the first track on their next album, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we also have another track on here called Icarus Bone on Wings of Steel, which is quite good. Child of Innocence is quite good, which is nearly like saying Child of the Universe by Barclay James Harvest on 1974's Everyone's Everybody Else, because they were a prog rock band just like Kansas. And with Innocence, we could say The Songs of Innocence by U2, which the album was probably placed on your phone at one time. These Kansas wouldn't do stuff like that because they're a really talented band. So, and then as you can see on the back here, you can see all the members: Phil Ehart, Steve Walsh, Dave Hope, Rich Williams, Kerry Livgren, and Robbie Steinhardt. Pretty good. The album cover, I think, is really creepy because it looks like someone is wearing a face mask. But then I think mask is spelled M-A-S-Q-U-E, like think of the word masquerade, not the M-A-S-K, which we wear to disguise ourselves and also to protect ourselves from illnesses recently. So, yeah, that's that one. I'll just get the disc. Is the disc the same as the first 2? Yes, it is. That's pretty cool. Mask. And then in 1976 was a classic year for Kansas, and they released what I feel is their best studio album that celebrates its 45-year anniversary this year. Leftoverture from 1976. I mean, I love this album. Who doesn't? And the album cover is pretty cool too, with a beard. So this, of course, features the big hit on here, Carry On My Wayward Son, which, as I mentioned about the Pinnacle, this is like a continuation of that track, so that's pretty cool. Rush even did that too, with the last track on A Farewell to Kings, and then the opening track on Hemispheres, which was quite cool. Carry On My Wayward Son is a really great tune. I love the down, 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 down. It's awesome riff. Kerry Livgren plays that, and I love the way that they go into the progressive rock. For some reason, the music, when Steve Walsh sings, it kind of gives me the vibe of Bruce Springsteen Jungle Land, because obviously Jungle Land was recorded around that same time too. And I think Jungle Land is one of Springsteen's masterpieces when it comes to performing it live. And then, so with Carry On, it's also a song titled by J.J. Cale, which is on the Shades album that turns 40 this year. And as I mentioned before, Kansas covered Bringing It Back by J.J. So, and Carry On My Wayward Son is considered as one of the classics on here, as well as The Wall, which I think is a great tune. It's also a Bruce Springsteen song from High Hopes, and it's also by Pink Floyd with Another Brick in the Wall from 1979. And around this same time, Steve Walsh was actually coming over writer's block when working on this album. Like, he must have found it very difficult to come up with song ideas. He had to leave all the work to Kerry Livgren, which is quite cool. And this album here only features 8 songs, because the last track on here, Magnum Opus, has 6 parts to it. So it's almost like a Genesis Supper's Ready kind of song with different parts in the song, like some of the other classic prog rock songs. And it was written by all 6 members of the band. And then I noticed Robbie Steinhardt does the vocals on Miracles Out of Nowhere, and I think he does the vocals on What's on My Mind, and I think he does Questions of My Childhood. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what he does. So yeah, it's a cool album, I must say. And the disc is exactly the same. As I said, this is a masterpiece of an album. If you haven't heard this, I wouldn't say go to a Kansas compilation. I'd say go straight to this record, because this is fantastic. One of my favourite albums, one of my favourite prog rock albums of all time, definitely. It's a masterpiece. Now, it may be my favourite Kansas album, but this next album here, Point of No Return from 1977, features my favourite Kansas song, Dust in the Wind. Oh my god, it's a beautiful song. Dust in the Wind is amazing, and it almost gives you some Simon and Garfunkel vibes with the guitar playing, and Steve Walsh's vocals on that are amazing. He's one of my favourite singers of all time, I must say. Like, he's amazing. And what have we got in here? So, I noticed that Robbie Steinhardt does the vocals on Lightning's Hand, which is pretty good. And Lightning's Hand, is there like saying with when light... Actually, no, it doesn't actually. I was going to say it was almost like Lightning Strikes by both Aerosmith and Kiss. But then I'm thinking of... But I need to take off the S for that. So, the other great song that Robbie Steinhardt just focused on here is Sparks of the Tempest. And as we know, Tempest is a album and song title by Bob Dylan from 2012, the last of original material for 8 years, which is pretty cool. And Robbie Steinhardt also does the vocals on Hopelessly Human, the very last track on here. And it could almost like saying Almost Human, which is a song title by Kiss from 1977's Love Gun, which was sung by the co-lead singer of the band, Gene Simmons, like the way that Robbie Steinhardt is the co-lead singer of Kansas. Because he and Steve Walsh did vocals together, and their vocals kind of blend in together, like on Dust in the Wind. It's pretty good. And that's pretty much it for talking about that album. Now here's the disc, if I can get it out. I can. And it's the same. They're all the same, basically. Because I didn't really know that. But, yeah. Great album. Love it. Can't go wrong there at all. Okay, so... Those and also those first 5 albums are in the original album Classics of Kansas, where they pick 5 albums to put into one box. Like I have the original album Classics of Art Garfunkel with James Taylor, and then Lou Reed, of course. I also have the Monkees and the Cars, but they were original album series, so that's pretty cool. And now we get, of course, the live album from Kansas. So this is 2 for the show. Now this is the 30th anniversary edition, because this was released in 1978. Which is pretty cool. And interestingly enough, it replicates a gatefold. So I'll just get the disc. disc 1, it's the exact same. And then here is disc 2, exactly the same. It's all the same. This might be a good live album, but I don't really listen to live albums that much. I much prefer the studio albums. I don't focus on compilations or EPs or anything like that. So, they don't actually... So on this album, they do Song for America, Point of No Return, Paradox, which was another song, which was another hit from that previous album, Icarus Born on Wings of Steel. Then they do Portrait He Knew, Carry On My Wayward Son, Journey from Maria Brown, which I'm not sure where that album is from. Then we have Dust in the Wind, which features a acoustic guitar solo by Kerry Livgren, or maybe Rich Williams. And then Lonely Wind has a piano solo, Mysteries and Mayhem, excerpt from Lamplight Symphony, The Wall, and then on the bass side, and then on the other side they have Closet Chronicles, and then Magnum Opus. I noticed that on the CD version they actually do Bringing It Back, which is not on here, and I think they do Phil Ehart's drum solo. I'm not 100% sure, but this one might be good. So after another really good live album, the band kind of started to decline a bit, but this next album is not bad overall. So let me turn the page in my booklet so I can get to it. Okay, so here it is. Monolith from 1979. And this album replicates a gatefold. And I'll just get the disc before I talk about any of the tracks. The exact same. I think all the discs are the same, but I'm doing it just in case. I think that album cover is kind of creepy with the horns on the front, kind of like the devil horns. Right, let's have a look at the tracks. So, these... I'm not sure which tracks were hits on here, but we have Angels Have Fallen, which is quite good. And we have How My Soul Cries Out For You, that's also pretty good. On the other side, pretty good. There's not really much to say for referencing tracks with other titles. I'm not... Is there... No, I don't think so. All I can say is that it's a pretty good album cover, even though I do think this album did get a bit of mixed reviews. So I think of the original lineup featuring Steve, Rich, Phil, Dave, Robbie and Kerry, I think this is probably their most overlooked album. So I think people do need to give a bit of enthusiasm for this album and try to not let it get forgotten. But this should be good. I know there wasn't much reference for song titles on that one, but it's alright. And then the next album here is Audio Visions from 1980. We now leave the 70s behind, and now they kind of go into a more harder edge with this album. So, pretty good. Here's the back. I think that's Dave Hope on the back. I could be wrong, but it looks like him. I like the album cover where he's putting the headphones on. I think ABBA did that in the studio when they were filming the Gimme Gimme a Man After Midnight, which was cool. So, what have we got on here? So, we have a track called Relentless, which basically means that it goes on too long and keep going on and on. We also have a track called Hold On, which is quite good. Hold On is the song titled by the following: Barclay James Harvest on 1984's Pictures of Circumstance, Lou Reed on New York, and also by Triumph on Just a Game, which is cool. And a couple of other good ones in here. We also have a track called Backdoor, which could be like Backdoor Man, which is a song titled by The Doors from their 1967 debut album, although they didn't write it. And we have Got to Rock On, which is quite good, and the track Don't Open Your Eyes was written by all the members. And yeah, I mean, this is a pretty cool album cover, I must say. This is the last album with Steve Walsh before he left. Very sad. So by this point, I kind of lost a bit of interest in Kansas when Steve Walsh left. But he did come back eventually. So, a pretty good album, I must say. So then Steve Walsh leaves. He also forms a band called Streets. And he later rejoined the band with current bass player Billy Greer, which is pretty cool. And now we move on to John Elephant on vocals now. So he's going to take over for the next two albums. And here is the first step on that path. Vinyl Confessions from 1982. A pretty good album, actually. I mean, like, I know some people didn't like this one because Steve Walsh isn't on it, but He's got some good songs on here. The opening track, Play the Game Tonight, is quite good, and Play the Game is an album title by Queen from 1980, which also is a song title too. And what else? Oh yeah, and in that same year, 1982, Queen released Hot Space. So Play the Game Tonight was a big hit for them. I like the track Borderline, which is a really good song. That's also a song title by Thin Lizzy on the 1976 album Johnny the Fox. And the last track on here, Crossfire, is sung by Robbie Steinhardt, and this is the last album to feature him before he left. I think John Elephant is a decent singer, but he's nowhere near as good as Steve Walsh. And as you can tell, that Kerry Livgren was kind of changing a bit there. And what else is on here? There's also Diamonds and Pearls, which is quite good. That's also like saying Diamonds and Rust by Joan Baez, which Judas Priest covered. And Face It is quite good. And I like Play On. So this is not a bad album overall. I mean, obviously not as good as some of the stuff from Steve Walsh. And then here's the disc, the exact same. I'm just going to get the disc for Audio Visions just to see if it is the same. Yeah, it is. So that's pretty good. And then finally, from 1983, Drastic Measures. And as we know, this is the first album as 5 members, and this is the first time they don't have a violin, so they're kind of moving away from the prog rock sound. And now moving into a more arena rock kind of sounding. But this is not bad. I like the opening track, Fight Fire with Fire. That's a really good song. I like Andy. That's a pretty good one. Mainstream is quite good, and that's nearly like saying Main Street, which is a song title and album title. Song title by Bob Seger from Night Moves that turns 45 this year. Because the real reason for doing this Kansas unboxing is to celebrate 45 years of the album Leftoverture. Because as I said, it's my favourite Kansas album. And I like Don't Take Your Love Away, that's quite good. Get Rich, very like saying Get Rich Quick, which is a song title by Little Richard, which is pretty good. Is there anything else on here? No, I think that's it. I'll just get the disc. And it's the same. I think all the discs are the same, actually. The album cover is quite cool, with sitting in the orchestra. And as you guys are aware, this is the last album to feature Dave Hope and Kerry Livgren, because they both left the band after this album. That ultimately resulted in the band breaking up, and even John Elephant left as well. Obviously, he's not as good as Steve Walsh, as I said, but he's okay. So yeah, Drastic Measures. And that's it. That's my unboxing for the Kansas Classic Albums Collection 1983. So 1974 to 1983 Classic Albums Collection. Love Kansas. They're one of my favourite bands of all time. And they had later releases, which were Power from 1986, which had the return of Steve Walsh and the introduction of Billy Greer. And then In the Spirit of Things from 1988. And then they had Freaks of Nature from 1995, which had David Ragsdale on violin, bringing the return of the violin back in 13 years. And then they had 1998's Always Never the Same, with the return of Robbie Steinhardt, so obviously David left. And then 2000 was a reunion album with all the 6 original members plus Billy Greer, which was, of course, Somewhere to Elsewhere. And then Dave Hope left for good, and so did Kerry Livgren. And then 2014, Steve Walsh officially left, and 2006, Robbie Steinhardt left. And now the current lead singer is Ronnie Platt, who sang on 2016's The Prelude Implicit, and 2020, The Absence of Presence. And I think this year, one of the current members of the band left as well. So it's only been Rich Williams and Phil Ehart that were with the band the whole time. So without those 2 members, Kansas would never have been the same. So there you go. Remember to subscribe to my channel. Leave your comment below on what you think of the Kansas box set and the band in general. And I shall see you guys again pretty soon. Thank you for watching.